What's going on YouTube? So for those of you who've been watching the channel for a while, you know that I really like the Mazda 6, as in it was one of the vehicles I was considering to replace my Camry. So when this Mazda 6 Signature showed up, it was something we haven't got the chance to sample yet, and I definitely wanted to come and check out this fully loaded top tier model. So with that all said, let's go ahead and see if this is truly a class above and is truly worth the price tag. Now obviously, if you've ever seen any of these Mazda 6s driving around town, you'll know that this has always had a very premium and upscale look. And when you go for the Signature version, that simply is enhanced. So you still got this same classic Mazda grille here, but the big difference for the Signature trim is that you have the gunmetal finish on this inside, which is basically kind of a little bit more metallic. It definitely stands out and looks more premium. And then looking over here at your headlights, it is pretty much the same version as on the other trim levels, but the Signature does include standard adaptive abilities in addition to all the full LED lighting. Now in terms of the wheels, Mazda does nicely include these 19-inch alloys on all but the base model. However, that does mean that the Signature does not get its own exclusive design, but instead it's reserved just to have an exclusive finish, which is a little bit brighter, stands out a little bit more than the other trim levels. And then moving up here to your mirrors, they are equipped like a luxury vehicle here on the Signature model. So you have power folding, auto dimming, blind spot monitoring built into the mirror, as well as an LED turn signal.
Now here at the rear design, the Signature isn't going to be really any different than any other trim. And just pointing out the features here, we do have an integrated spoiler up top, as well as fully LED tail lights, which really gives it a premium look. And then down below we do have dual exhaust pipes. And I guess I will mention that there is a Signature badge on the back, so that's how you're going to be able to tell that this is a Signature model. Now, of course, on this high-end Signature trim, you are going to have the standard iActive Safety Sense package, which is actually standard across the Mazda 6 lineup. So you will have adaptive cruise control as well as advanced systems like auto high beam headlights as standard on the Signature model. Well, that sums up the exterior of this Mazda 6 Signature. So let's go ahead and check out the inside, where arguably the bigger changes are.
So on board with this 2020 Mazda 6 is their new key fob. So we finally got rid of that slender fob and went to this kind of square fob with the buttons down here on the side. Now Smart Entry is standard on all but the very base model. However, the door handle has not been updated to have the sensor, so you will have to press the black button. And when you do, your mirrors will electrically fold outward. So we've never reviewed the Signature version of the Mazda 6 before, and I have to say, boy, does it make a great first impression. Definitely has an extremely luxurious design. Now almost every single trim level does come with different interior material and color options. I'm not going to bore you with every single little detail. I will just say you have cloth, leatherette, leather, and then when you get to this Signature model is where you get the Napa leather. And as you can see, it is a beautiful design, and you also have extra details like that little silver accent. Now turning over here to your door trim, you'll see more of this brown leather running through here, an Alcantara trim with the genuine stitching detail, as well as the real wood trim. And then all four of your windows are one-touch automatic. Heading down here to your seats, this is the 8-way power adjusting seat with 2-way lumbar support. As you can see, you have a silver finish on the controls as well as piano black around it, and 2-person memory seating on the GT Reserve and up. And then coming back to these seats once again, like I said, it is Napa leather, so it's extremely premium. This is the type of leather you usually have to pay extra for on luxury vehicles, so definitely high grade and looks very classy. Now once you start actually looking around the cabin, you'll see that the premium design is actually backed up by very premium materials, once again, especially here on the Signature trim. So across your upper dashboard, you will have a soft touch plastic on every Mazda 6, and you also have a leatherette trim on this portion here. Now for the Signature model, this is where you'll have another piece of the real wood trim, and then a gigantic piece of this very premium Alcantara trim with the genuine double stitching detail. It links seamlessly in with the door trim, so this looks and feels very, very fancy. And then down here on the lower part, all of this is leather padded with some more color contrast stitching, and fits together very, very nicely. Now, of course, standard on every model is push button start. Now, as far as the gauges, this is another area that is Signature exclusive. These being the premium digital gauges with a 7-inch display replacing the speedometer. Now, it doesn't seem all that special because the Mazda 3 does include this standard across every single trim, but it is something that differentiates the Signature 6 from the rest of the trim levels. And as you can see, you can just click through and cycle through various different functions by pressing the info button on the steering wheel. And additionally, you will also find a head-up display on both the GT Reserve and the Signature. Now coming back to the steering wheel, you do have electric power assisted steering, and the steering wheel itself is wrapped in a really nice and supple leather on the Signature trim with a double stitching detail instead of the single stitching detail on the other trim levels. You also find rain sensing wipers, and you have manual steering wheel adjustment, but it is also heated on GT Reserve and Signature. Alright, so let's go ahead and roll into interior storage as the next thing. I'll start out under the center console. This is pretty small, but it is quite deep, and this is also where you'll find 2 of your USB ports and a 12-volt outlet. You can slide back this tray right here to reveal your 2 very deep cup holders. And then up in the very front, you have another large storage bin. Now coming back to the shifter, of course this is just a traditional shifter, so you pull back for drive, bump to the left to shift manually. And since this is equipped with the turbo engine, you will also find paddle shifters. And then popping it into reverse, this is where you're going to find another signature element, and that is going to be a 360-degree camera system. Now you do have to push down once more to activate that view, but as you can see, you have both your regular view and your 360 view. However, one thing to keep in mind is that the resolution is pretty low. It's definitely on the grainier side, and it is lower than the Mazda CX-30, which we also reviewed today. And then over here you have your drive mode selector. You also have an electronic parking brake and brake hold. Alright, and now that brings us here to our audio systems. Now on the Grand Touring and up, that's where you'll get the upgraded 11-speaker Bose premium sound system. So let's go ahead and take a sample of that. Overall sound quality of this system is excellent, though I will say that I miss having the metal speaker grills that the new Mazda 3 throws in. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out the climate control system. So this is the dual zone automatic setup that comes on the vast majority of trim levels. As you can see, it does have very simple adjustment and physical controls for everything. You will also find that all but the very base model will throw in heated seats, but you'll have to go up for at least the GT Reserve to get the seat ventilation. Okay, and checking out this main display, this is the 8-inch display, and it is running the older style version of the Mazda Connect system. So as you can see, this is still a touchscreen unlike the new Mazdas, but you're running the older software and the older graphics and the older performance. Now the Signature will come standard with the navigation system as you'd expect for a fully loaded model, but all but the very base model will also have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay on board. Now moving on up, you will find an auto dimming mirror with HomeLink universal remotes on the majority of trim levels. However, this frameless design is exclusive to the Signature. And then up top here, of course, you will find a standard moonroof. It is standard on all but the very base model, as a matter of fact.
Alrighty, so sitting back here in the Mazda 6 Signature's rear seat, I have to say it has a very premium ambience, just like the front. And as far as the features are concerned, we do have standard vents as you would expect, and here in the fold-down armrest, you will also notice a few more features. You do have standard 3-stage heated rear seats, which are on the GT Reserve and the Signature trim, so that's a really nice touch for a midsize sedan, as well as 2 cup holders. And if you pop open this little area here, you have a little felt-lined storage tray with 2 smart charging USB ports. And as far as the rear space is concerned, you're going to find a very class competitive amount of space back here, although it is a little bit less than the Camry and Accord. And behind rear seating position, I still have probably 7 to 8 inches of rear leg room, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat, so definitely not going to have any space issues. And as far as a few Signature exclusive touches, we do have silver accenting back here, as well as a special headliner, which really gives it a premium feel back here. Now walking up to the trunk, all you have to do to open it is locate the little button under the lid, and it does open right up. Now as far as the actual space is concerned, you're going to come in at 14.8 cubic feet of space, which does place it behind the Camry and Accord. And as far as how Mazda has finished it back here, it is finished nicely, since you do have carpeting along the floor, as well as a spare tire up underneath of the floor, and the seats do also fold 60-40 split. Now here's the passenger seat. On the top 2 trims, you're going to find 6-way power adjustment. And in front of the passenger, we do have a really good sized glove box, and it is also really nicely felt lined. And up top, we do have a sun visor with an LED light and mirror, and it does also detach, as well as have an extension in the end.
The handling. So that's where I want to start with the test drive, is just the handling, because that's really the most exceptional thing about this Mazda 6, as well as most Mazdas in the lineup, is just how good they handle and how they perform. I mean, look at this steering. Lightning fast. And the body control. It just feels amazing. I mean, really buttoned down. You know, this is a genuinely sporty midsize sedan. Yeah, you know, and it almost feels like, you know, like not a midsize sedan, you could say. That's the next best thing about it. The turbo engine. Of course, as you'd expect, the Signature comes with the upgraded 2.5 liter turbo engine, 250 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. So very nice numbers on board here. Especially the torque figure. You can really feel the sensation of pushing you back as the turbo brings in the torque.
Now, I do also want to talk about the other engines, though, because unfortunately this is not the standard engine across all of the trims. So if you go for one of those more basic trims, the Sport and Touring, you're going to get a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine just like this one, but you will have 187 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. So definitely a huge reduction in the power figures. So that's just definitely something to consider if you're going from the Touring to the Grand Touring, you know, that you get that turbo engine as standard equipment on that model.
Now, as typical with Mazdas, this Mazda 6 does have a 6-speed automatic transmission. You know, it is the same one that's been on board for a while now, and 6 gears is not a ton of gears, but the performance of the transmission is very good. It's definitely very willing to shift as your power demands change, which is something I definitely like to see. You know, so you don't have that hyper, like, fuel economy minded, always trying to stay in the highest gear, which is definitely nice because this is kind of a performance version of this midsize sedan. It also shifts quite smoothly as well.
You know, and one thing to mention here is that, you know, some in the segment do offer, you know, in their basic engines, you know, this is the 6-speed, even on the basic engine, they'll have CVTs. So that's a distinct advantage that this has over top of that because, you know, it gives you that more driver-focused type of edge.
Yeah, and you have paddle shifters as well.
Now, I do want to also mention the drivetrains. So this is going to be front-wheel drive only. There is not an all-wheel drive option on this Mazda 6, unfortunately. Hopefully Mazda will add that maybe with the next generation model, but that is currently not an option. And now that we're up to around 40 miles an hour or so, you know, I do want to talk about this Mazda 6's, you know, ride quality and comfort. You know, we've said this in past Mazda 6 reviews. You know, honestly, this is, when you're here in the signature trim, it really has, it's missing almost nothing from a luxury vehicle. You know, you've got the premium ambience, but you've also got the ride quality to go along with it. You know, it really does ride exceptionally well here in this signature trim, and, you know, it's extremely quiet even when you're up at speed. So I definitely think that, you know, a lot of you guys, if you're looking for, you know, this Mazda 6 signature, you're definitely going to be impressed with what it has to offer.
Yeah, it definitely takes care of even the largest road imperfections. You know, just a small vibration is all you feel. And like you said, it does go well with the overall ambience because you feel like you're in a luxury vehicle here. That's kind of the theme of this car, really, is kind of like that luxury experience, but without forking over all the dough, basically.
Yeah.
You know, and it does go through and through all areas of the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it just, that premium ambience, you know, we kind of talked about this off of camera, how it smells really nice in here.
It does.
And that has a lot to do with, you know, the materials they've thrown in. They've thrown in this, like, Alcantara trim here. We've got Napa leather seats, which is, you know, honestly, you don't even see that, you know, on, like, BMWs that cost $100,000. And it just gives you that premium ambience that, you know, really no other midsize sedan will offer that. I don't care if you get a touring Accord or whatever, it doesn't have that next level up, which is what this signature trim is offering. Now, in regards to fuel economy, that is something that we do need to talk about. You're going to be getting a little bit less than some of the competition, as you might expect, you know, with just a more traditional engine setup with that 6-speed transmission. So you're going to come in at 26 city, 35 highway, 29 combined if you go for the base 2.5 liter setup. And if you go for the turbo, that's going to be down a few at 23 city, 31 highway, 26 combined, which honestly, that's not horrible fuel economy, especially for your performance. But you will need to put premium gas, if I'm not mistaken, in order to get that full torque figure.
You'll be reduced without it.
So, you know, that it will cost you a little bit more at the pump than some of its rivals.
So at the beginning of the video, we asked if the signature trim actually, you know, feels as special as they make it out to be, if it actually feels like a real luxury kind of vehicle. And I have to say, it really does. It's really a testament to not just the signature trim, but actually to the entire Mazda 6 lineup, because you can get most of this package on the lower end trim levels as well. So while this has that extra level of specialness, the entire lineup really has a level of specialness and a level of sportiness that not very many things in the class frankly offer.
Alrighty, and now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing for this Mazda 6. Now, for the very base sport model, you're going to be roughly in line with all of its competitive set, since it starts at $24,100. The Touring is $26,700, Grand Touring is $29,800, Grand Touring Reserve is $32,300. And then finally you have what we have here, which is the fully loaded Signature trim, which starts at $35,400. And it's worth noting that's about a $300 price increase over last year. Now the Signature doesn't have many options, but one of those is this beautiful red paint for $595, and then when you add the destination charge of $920, you're going to be looking at an as-tested price of $36,815, which I have to admit, you know, it is a pretty steep price point for a sedan, but honestly, you know, the Camry as well as the Honda Accord can push, you know, the Camry especially over $40,000 for a fully loaded model, and this is fully loaded at $37,000 and has a lot of the features that, you know, the Camry and stuff doesn't throw in. So it's definitely something that you should be considering, or if it's not in your price point, maybe a lower trim level. Well guys, we've enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the 2020 Mazda 6 Signature. If you made it this far, hopefully that means you enjoyed the video, so be sure to help us out by hitting that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.